What's going on, guys? Today we're going to add Redux Toolkit into our project. It's much easier to set up than normal Redux. Redux Toolkit will already have Redux Thunk set up out of the box for asynchronous data fetching, which we'll get into in this video, and the Redux developer tools come configured already as well, so much easier to set up. This is a continuation of our Music Talk app. It's an app like Facebook, but people talk about music. I don't think there's a better idea out there, really. Just kidding. In previous videos, which you don't need for this one, by the way, we set up React for the front end, Node and Express for the server, MySQL for the database, and we got routing set up with React Router. In this video, we'll set up Redux Toolkit to handle our global state, if the user is logged in or not, what user is logged in if there is one, along with error and loading states. We'll also move our logic for a user signing up into Redux Toolkit and use Redux Thunk for asynchronous actions. So let's get into it. This is our Music Talk project that has React and Node projects for our front and back end. So in the terminal here, I will change directory into client, which is our React app. And then we'll install Redux Toolkit and Redux by running npm install Redux.js Toolkit and React Redux. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Bunch of packages, high vulnerabilities, clear that. Now inside our project, we will create a store folder. Create a folder, call that store, and then inside that we'll create a file called store.js, and here we will import configure store from Redux Toolkit, and then we will export a const called store and call configure store, which takes an object with a reducer, and I'll save that. So we have a store and a reducer with nothing in it for now. We'll add that in a second. Now we'll want to provide this store to React. So in our index.js file, we will import store from our store folder and that store file. And we will also import provider from React Redux. And then we will wrap this provider around our router, which is essentially our entire app. And then our whole entire app will have access to that store. So in here we have the store attribute, and we will pass in store, which is what we just imported. Save that. So now we'll create an auth reducer. In normal Redux, you would have different reducers and then join them with combined reducers. In Redux Toolkit, they have these different reducer slices. They handle both the reducers and the actions, and there's still some boilerplate code, but not near as much as the usual Redux. So in our store folder, we'll create another file. We'll call this AuthSlice.js, and we will import create slice from Redux Toolkit. And create slice is a function that accepts an initial state, a slice name, and an object of reducer functions. It also automatically generates action creators and action types that correspond to the reducers and state. So we'll make a const of initial state create our initial state out here, outside of the create slice. So the initial state in our AuthSlice will say there will be a user, which will be an empty string by default. Say is logged in, which will be false by default. We'll have a loading state starting as false and error starting as null. And then we'll export a const, which we will call AuthSlice, and have that equal to create slice. Pass in this object, and here's where we'll give it the name, which we'll just call auth. We'll pass in our initial state we just created, and then there's these reducers. So before we get to asynchronous data fetching, we'll just go with a simple log out, and that'll be a function, and this will be a reducer function, and we'll have our state and action. So we'd also have access to any action payload that we send in. And let's see, when they log out, we'll say state.user equals an empty string. We'll do state.isLoggedIn equals false. State.loading is false. And state.error is null. And with normal Redux, you would have to change the state immutably, but with Redux Toolkit, it uses the immer library and does that under the hood for you, which is awesome. So an action will automatically be generated for that logout we have in the reducer, and we can destructure and export that here, and then import it anywhere else in our app that we want to use it. So we'll do export const, and we'll grab logout from this AuthSlice and the actions. Those actions being the one that are automatically generated for us. And then we will also want to export the AuthSlice here, and more specifically the reducer. Save that. And now in our store.js, we can import that and add it to our global store or our global state. So import AuthSlice, already recognize that and auto-completed. And then this is where we have our different reducers that we combine here. Like I said, we don't have to use combine reducers. We can just set different ones in here. And so this property we can call whatever we want. We'll just call it auth, and that will be the AuthSlice state. And now anywhere in our app, we can import useDispatch or useSelector from React Redux to access our actions or our state. But first, let's add some more to our AuthSlice or auth reducer. So this is a normal reducer without any asynchronous data fetching or posting. We don't need any of that for logging a user out, but when a user signs up, we have to take their username and password, send it to our server, enter it in the database, and when that's confirmed successful, we'll send back the username and update the state accordingly. And to do that, we will import and use create asyncThunk. And that will also be coming from Redux Toolkit. So create asyncThunk. And we'll also import Axios from Axios to make our API call to our server. Then up here, outside of our slice reducer, we'll export a const. We'll call it signup. That will be equal to create asyncThunk, And create asyncThunk is a function, and it takes in a string, and it's a string that describes the action, which you won't really need to use, but you'll see the name of the slice, which for us is auth, and then a slash, and then the name of like this action. So auth/signup for us. And then it takes a function that returns a promise, and that'll be our API call. This asyncThunk will create actions based on how that promise resolves. So there will be an action for fulfilled, pending, and rejected. And then we can handle state accordingly for either of those cases. And so this will be an async function that we're passing in. And we'll pass in our username and password that we will be sending in. You can only send in one argument here, so if you need multiple things like a username and password, for example, you'll have to make it in one argument, like an object with multiple properties. And we'll have to close that parentheses there because we're passing in those arguments, so that doesn't go there. And now for asynchronous function with our username and password, we will do a try catch, make a const of response, we'll do await, we'll say axios.post, and then we'll reach out to our server, which for now is our localhost 8080, and then the signup route. And along with that post request, we will send in our username and password. And then we will return the response.data, which will be an object with our username. And then the catch here, where we will have the error. We'll do the classic console.log, the error for now. And then we'll just hard code an error state when we handle that action down below. And now to add those generated async actions, we'll have to add this extra reducers down here. So we have our normal reducers, and then we will also have a extra reducers. And then this is where you can add case reducers, which the keys should be the other action types. It can be a little confusing to set up, but once you get it set up, you're golden. Classic Redux. So you'll typically use this builder callback function. And that takes a builder object as its argument. Inside that builder object is an add case method for assigning actions this reducer can handle. This is where we'll configure our promise-based signup actions. So from this builder, we will access the add case, and we'll have 3 of these add cases. One for signup.fulfilled, for when that promise resolves successfully. And again, we'll have access to our state and action and any payload that we send in. And so when they sign up successfully, we want to say state.user equals action.payload, which is that data object right here. And we'll be sending in an object with the property of username, which will equal our username. So that's how we'll set the user. And then we'll also set is logged in to true. We'll set state dot loading to false. And we'll set state dot error to null. And now we'll add and chain another add case for signup.pending, callback function, accessing our state and action. And when it's pending, we will say state.loading is true. And then last one, add case, and that'll be when sign up is rejected. So when that promise fails, we'll say state.loading is false. We'll say state.isLoggedIn false as well. And then we'll just hard code an error for now. We'll make it a string. Say an error occurred. Awkward. So if we save that, and now we go to our sign up component, our sign up page. So in the previous video, we were doing an Axios post request right in the submit handler on the page, and then setting the user with some local state. But now we will dispatch an action from our React Redux, and then we'll set the global state. So we can get rid of Axios, and we will import use dispatch and use selector from React Redux. So that's just basic, React Redux, not Toolkit. But we also want to import our signup action from our AuthSlice. And now we can remove this user that we were doing with our local state, and we can say const user equals use selector, and then a function where we access our state, and we will say state.auth, and it's state.auth because of this here. And then in that auth, we are accessing the user. And then we will also access the error state. We'll say use selector. That'll be state.auth.error. And lastly, make it const of dispatch and call use dispatch, which will let us dispatch our actions. So we still want to keep this event.prevent default. Instead of this Axios post here, we want to do dispatch and then our sign up action. And then in here we want to pass in our username and password that we're getting from the form below. Also, and that's being set with our local state. And then we'll just keep the .then. We're handling state in the reducer, but we do want to clear the fields. And this setting the user with the local state, we can get rid of that. Then down here, we're still detecting for that same user. We're just accessing it with the global state now. We still want to check for that, and if it's true, we will use React Router to redirect to the profile page. And then we were sending over the user with the state, but we'll be able to access that through Redux, through our global state. So we don't need to send that over through that now. That way in the future, if they load up the profile page, we can grab the user from the global state. We don't need it to come from the sign up page. And then we'll check for the error. And if that's true, let's style this error text here real quick. Using Tailwind, we'll center the text and we will make it red. And we will display the error. And so that's displaying if error is true, and if it's false, we will display nothing. So we'll save that. And now on our profile page, we can remove this use location from React Router DOM. That's how we were accessing the user that we were sending over with the redirect. And now we can import use selector from React Redux and access the user that way. So we can remove that. We'll keep this const.user and we'll say use selector, access our state.auth.user. And then same thing here. Detecting the user. If it's true, we will say a hi username. And if it's false, null. Save that. And then another thing I want to do is the navigation. I want to make this dynamic based on if a user is logged in or not. And so we're showing sign up and sign in links. And obviously we don't want to show those if they are logged in. So we will import use dispatch and use selector. That use dispatch is going to be for logging the user out. And so we will also import our logout action from our store folder, and that store, or actually straight from our AuthSlice. And now here we will say const logged in. We'll do our use selector, and we will detect if they are logged in or not by accessing our state and the auth and is logged in, which will be true or false. And then we'll do a const dispatch equals use dispatch. So we have the link to our home page and the Music Talk logo that we created. And then on the right side, we'll check for logged in. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And this will be showing if logged in is true. So instead of the sign up link, we will do a link to profile. And so that will link to /profile. And then this will be a log out, which will just go to /home, because then they can sign in or sign up at that point. We still have to make the home page. Right now it just says home page. And then for this link we'll do an on click, and then we will fire that dispatch action with an anonymous function here. So we'll say dispatch and then our log out action. And that'll be log out. Bring bring this down here. We'll format this a little bit. There we go. So if logged in is true, profile and log out. And if logged in is false, sign up or sign in. Save that. Okay, let's give this a go. I'm going to come over to my other terminal. This is the project. I'm going to change directory into the server, which is our Node and Express app. Start that up with node index.js. Make sure we are sending over that username. This is from a previous video that we did. Yes. So the sign up, so we're accessing the username password. We add it into the database, and then we send the username back as an object. Start the React app for the front end. Go back to the browser here, localhost 3000. It's our gorgeous homepage. So if we go to sign up, username of Looney Tunes, get it? Wow. Enter the password. Hit enter. And we see it redirected to the profile page and greeted the user. See this updated to profile and log out. It's looking good. If we do Option Command J, pull up our console. It's another cool thing about Redux Toolkit is the Redux Dev Tools comes configured out of the box as well. So if we go to Redux, we see our state. We have the user Looney Tunes is logged in as true. And then we have our actions. You see that auth/signup that we created earlier. There's the pending, and then there's the fulfilled. And then if we click log out, we are logged out and redirected to the home page, and the navigation changes back. And we see the state is updated there as well. Now, one thing I want to show you, I'm going to reload this to reset it. This really tripped me up for a while. So if you shut down the server, we'll go through this again. We'll do a test user, whatever password. And so the server is shut down. So this should be giving us an error. And now it's still pending. But I've also seen it say fulfilled at this point, which it definitely should not. So if we go to our AuthSlice here, we have this error, and then we're saying when it's rejected, we should be setting the error state accordingly. And I've even seen it console.log this error, but still do the fulfilled action. So it's very strange. And to fix that, we have to return something here. In this create asyncThunk, we have that auth/signup. We have our async function. And we can also get access to the Thunk API. And the Thunk API is an object containing all of the parameters that are normally passed to a Redux Thunk function, as well as additional options. And one of those additional options is reject with value. Reject with value is a utility function that you can return or throw in your action creator to return a rejected response with a defined payload. It will pass whatever value you give it and return it in the payload of the rejected action. So down in here, we will return the Thunk API, and the reject with value. And then we'll send in our error, and then we can access the message property of our error and display that. And then down in our rejected here, instead of hard coding it, we can say state.error equals action.payload. Save that. And now I still have the server shut off. And if I try to sign up again, we see network error. And now we see the rejected and state updated accordingly. Okay, so that's adding Redux Toolkit. We'll continue to use it as we build out this app, and we'll get into creating and fetching users' posts, users adding other users as friends, displaying their friends' posts, liking posts, all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, drop a comment and say what's up, and thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.